in der zentralen Position, nur Schwanzer hat er Vorsicht, dann ist es Fjørtoft, er ist im Strafraum, Tor! Tor! Für die Frankfurter Eintracht, 5:1,
Hi and welcome to the German Fussball Podcast, a special episode for you today, as I'm not only joined by Dad, my always trusted companion, but we have none other than Fabrizio Romano with us to discuss all things transfers and the Bundesliga. Dad, it's great to have you here. I think we should, as manners persist, introduce our guest and welcome him. Fabrizio, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Always a big pleasure to be with both of you. Really big pleasure. Congrats for everything you're doing, because I see you're doing excellent things on this podcast. So I follow you. I really appreciate what you're doing. And thank you again for the invitation.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
nice
words,
for Fabrizio. It's nice words, because I've had the pleasure to follow Fabrizio's career, so to say. And it was funny. As I'm speaking, I'm sitting in a hotel in Oslo, just coming home from some European Cups. And I came home and I said I had to leave the dinner. And they said, so these are people from Foreign Office, from the military, and some commercial guys. And they said, so what are you doing now? I said, I'm going to do a podcast with Fabrizio Romano. I said, are you doing it? He's like unbelievable. And so not only Fabrizio, you are very kind, and I think a lot of people do that, but I just want to say that it's very inspiring how you work, because you are the best at what you're doing, and that is very, very inspiring.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No, I totally agree with that sentiment. So all I can say is I very much agree with that. And it's very cool to see someone that does so well and is such a gentleman at the same time. So an inspiration, Fabrizio, but also a trusted source, the trusted source for all things transfers. And as always, you are a busy man. So I think what we'd look to do that is to go straight into it. And what's so cool for us to follow the Bundesliga is that a lot of players that are some of the most attractive players in the market are from the Bundesliga, the league that we're so fortunate to follow. A name that we have been discussing for a long time and will discuss into these summer months is none other than Jude Bellingham. Now with Borussia Dortmund, slight talks about him having a niggle with his knee, what have you. But what is the update on Jude Bellingham, Fabrizio? Because obviously there are a lot of clubs interested, and there will be certain circumstances that dictate where he might or might not go.
Yes, and honestly, I have a feeling that when you have too many giants around you, as in the case of Jude Bellingham, it's going to be really difficult. I think for Borussia Dortmund to keep the player, of course, they will try. It's part of the work of an excellent board, as Borussia Dortmund have always did, and they were successful in the attempt with Haaland, with Sancho, so they did it very well. But I think in this case with Jude Bellingham, it's going to be really difficult. As I mentioned, too many giants around the player at this stage. 3 giants, especially, fighting for the player, but it's still March, so let's keep it open. But at the moment, from what I understand, it's 3 giants, and it's Real Madrid, for sure, because Real Madrid are looking for Jude Bellingham as the perfect player for their project, for their midfield dream in the future. Of course, they still have Modric and Kroos performing at top level, but Tchouaméni, Camavinga, and Bellingham could be one of the best midfield ever for the future, and so this is what they want to do. But also Manchester City, because Man City have an excellent relationship with Borussia Dortmund. They already had some talks also on player side, and they want Jude Bellingham, so they will be in the race for sure. And then, of course, Liverpool, we know very well how Jurgen Klopp is obsessed with Jude Bellingham. He's the priority target, top of the list for Liverpool. They need fresh energies in the midfield, and he is the player they want with Jude Bellingham. And Jurgen Klopp, especially Jurgen Klopp, really involved in this story as a coach, but also helping the club in this race. So these 3 clubs are leading the race, and I think when you have Man City, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Ancelotti, Klopp, Guardiola, probably the best 3 managers in the world, all fighting to sign you, is really difficult to stay at Borussia Dortmund. I wish them to keep Jude Bellingham, but from what I understand, it's going to be more than difficult.
Yeah, and I think as well with Jude, it's quite interesting, because we talked about Team Haaland, and we can talk about Team Muani or Team whatever. But what they've done quite well, Fabrizio, is that they kind of kept away from, I'm not saying that the others have kept away from the speculations, but Jude has been very quiet about that. We don't know, he don't have that prolific kind of agent. He doesn't have a family that is well known, although his dad played in the Conference League in England. When you see the team in and around him, what do you see?
I see something very clear, that they want to keep things as secret as possible. So as the most secret as possible, this is the mission. Also, when we had some rumors, I think it was December, beginning of December, on agents involved in the deal for Jude Bellingham, the message was very clear, immediately denying those stories and mentioning that Mark Bellingham, the father of the player, is the only person who is taking care of the negotiations on the player side. I think this is kind of protection, as you mentioned, for the player, but also to keep things secret. This is something that they really want to do, not to have too many stories, because of course we're speaking about one of the best talents in the world, if not the best. He's an incredible player, but also they don't want his name too much on the media, and he's already too much on the media because of his fantastic performances, but they don't want too many things to come out, like the meeting between Juni Calafat from Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund a few days ago in London. They don't like to make negotiations public. This is why I think they're trying to protect the player as much as possible. This is the mission. I think they have been successful till now. Now it's going to be difficult, because when we enter into end of March, beginning of April, is going to be the moment to decide for the player. I think this is really similar situation to Haaland. Of course, Erling had the clause. In this case, Bellingham no, but the situation is pretty the same on the player side. The player has to decide. So also today morning, I was speaking to some of my friends, is one of these clubs involved in the race for Bellingham, and they told me, we're waiting for the player, because all these clubs feel they can go there and pay what Borussia Dortmund want. They can find a way, they can find a structure, they can use add-ons or any other way to give Borussia Dortmund what they want. But the point is to convince the player, long-term project. So it's never easy to convince this kind of stop stars. And this is what these three clubs are trying to do. And let's see if something will change with some other club to join the race. But at the moment, these three are leading the race.
And it was also back in the days with Haaland. I mean, sometimes people who didn't know all the processes, I think they put a lot too much on the money side of it, because at the moment in international football, the top clubs, they're more or less the same. I'm not saying that anyone could play better. We remember back in the days, we had information that Bayern, who said that we can't afford him, and nearly they could pay more than anybody else. So I think that is very right of you to say that. But it's quite interesting with Jude Bellingham. You just feel, well, I had a feeling back in the days with Haaland was that they kind of, I think for a player to think that Real Madrid is kind of the end station. I mean, that is when you come to Real Madrid, what's next? I mean, no disrespect to other clubs, but Real Madrid is the Royals. That is the
it's
club.
Like that. So, when you leave Real Madrid, is because you failed, and not because you can have something more than this. This is the feeling. It's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know if for Bellingham it's going to be the same, because at the moment he's speaking to Real Madrid. I'm sure that, as you mentioned, it's not just about money. I think he's a very smart guy, not just a fantastic player, but a very smart guy. And he knows very well that he's going to make crazy money in his career. So this is very clear. This is not about having a crazy salary today, but it's more about the project. So also every time I see maybe Liverpool playing or Man City or Real Madrid, there is always some comment around the media like saying, it's Jude Bellingham is watching at Liverpool, maybe now he's never going there. I'm not sure it's about that. I'm 100% sure it's going to be about the long-term project. I have a feeling that for Jude Bellingham, it's important to pick the right club for the next 4 or 5 years, and not just for 2-3 years. That is something different in football, because he wants to pick something that could be very good for him for the future and not just for the present. When the coach is right, the board is the right board. Similar process to Haaland. We know very well how into the details was Haaland together with his father, Alfie, into the decision to pick the right club, the right board, the right coach, and everything had to be in place. I think it's pretty the same with Jude Bellingham. This is why it's taking time. This is why it was not decided in December, in January, with so many rumors. But the player is still undecided. He's taking his time. And from what I understand, he's very relaxed. He's a smart guy, and he knows he's a very good position to be. But these three clubs are leading the race to sign him.
Fabrizio, from a general perspective, and as we go into the rest of these names, a club like Real Madrid, from a transfer strategy standpoint, is it one of those where they can only afford, or they only prioritize bringing one big name? Or is it, when we go through these lists, can it be 2 or 3, or for that matter, is there a set decision on that type of thing?
No. I think it's not something that they decide before, but they always try to bring in players who are 100% perfect for the project. They don't want to risk anymore. After they had some problems with some signings, as it happens, for example, with Luka Jovic, it happened with Eden Hazard, of course. So when they had some problems with these players, now they want to be 100% sure on the players they bring in, especially about the big stars, big investments. This is why I'm sure that they are obsessed with Jude Bellingham, because they know that whoever is going to sign Jude Bellingham knows that his player is perfect for the next 5 years, probably, and more than this. He's very young. He's very talented. He knows European football. He doesn't need to be proven anymore, because in Champions League he's amazing. In Bundesliga he's amazing. With the national team he was amazing. So they want Jude Bellingham because he's the perfect player. This is why Real Madrid are in the market for him. But I'm not sure that he's limited to Jude Bellingham. I'm sure that they would keep options open. They just invested big money on a 16-year-old player like Endrick from Brazil in December. We don't have to forget about that. Many times people say Real Madrid didn't sign any player. It's not true. They signed this boy for summer 24. So they always want to refresh the squad, but they want to be 100% sure on the players, and Bellingham is one of them, 100%.
Looking ahead then, we have two other fantastic youngsters in the Bundesliga in Florian Wirtz and Musiala. Musiala, despite a disappointing World Cup, was Germany's best player, has performed at extreme levels this season. Then you have a Florian Wirtz who's coming back from a serious injury, 4 assists in 8 games. Might be too soon for him this summer, perhaps, Fabrizio, but I'd be curious to hear what you think of the duo that Germany are very hopeful to lead them into the Euro 2024 at home, where we can see them in the future.
Yes, for Wirtz, we have to understand that, as you mentioned, he's coming back from a serious injury, so it will take some time for him to be at top level again. But this guy is very talented. He's a fantastic talent. And so this is why many clubs are monitoring him since a long time in England, but also in Spain. Also, Spanish clubs have always been in attendance when a player was fit to follow Florian Wirtz. So I'm sure there is big interest around him, but I'm not sure he's going to leave this summer. But Bayer Leverkusen want to try to keep the player at least for one more season and probably sell in summer 24 or 25. So this is their mission, but we know how the market sometimes is unpredictable. And I would keep an eye also on Bayern, because Bayern are also following the player since a long time. They love the player since a long time. So in this case, I think on Bellingham, it's almost impossible for them to be involved. But I think on Wirtz, they will follow the player and keep following the situation around him for sure. And for Musiala, Bayern are preparing a new contract proposal. This year, they know they have time. It's not an urgent situation, so they can take time to negotiate. But this year, 2023, they want to discuss with Musiala. They want to offer him a new deal. They want to make sure he's happy with the salary, the structure of the contract, and everything. They want to consider him as he is, a top player, not just a talent, but a top player. And this is what they will do by offering him a new contract. So I'm sure they are already busy with that, and I'm sure that Bayern will try to protect him also because the player is happy at Bayern, and this is always helping when you're going to negotiate a new contract with this kind of star.
And I think that, if I may say that, I think that people have to understand that Germany is a bit different than other leagues, because historically seen, a lot of players are going from one German club to another German club, or say it another way, they're going from one weaker top club to Bayern Munich, because in Bayern, a German will always think that Bayern is the ultimate thing doing it there. I think that when you see on Florian Wirtz now got Alonso, he's in good hands. He's got a great coach. He got a good teacher that you can have as a role model. And I think that 2024, I think, will be a key date for these players, because I think that everybody, and I think the staff around them, they don't want to do any chances for the 2024 Euros, which will be at home, and it's important. And I'm coming back now from Germany. It was a long interview in Kicker with Hansi Flick, and he was saying that, yes, Musiala and Wirtz can play together in my team. So I think that the pressure on them will be to stay there. As Fabrizio is saying, I think they will improve their contracts. The Germans are quite good at doing that, putting them at the fittable level, so to say. So Florian Wirtz, I got a feeling that he will stay till 2024 because that is just down the road. He has to use this season now as a bonus, that he comes back and he's looking good, and then have a good season to be one of the great players at Euro. So Florian Wirtz, I like that, Markus, that you put them into a package, because I think somehow their package is the same. But I'm with Fabrizio that Florian Wirtz could also end up at Bayern, because I think Bayern have to always look for the best players in Germany as they've done with other talents.
And the ever young Thomas Müller's career will come to an end at some point.
Never. He will never end his career.
No, that's what we hope for. Looking ahead then, we have a Gvardiol as well. Looking at the center backs, the defender union, I would like to mention. There are the usual suspects in the run for Gvardiol. How much of it that is dependent, Fabrizio, on, say, for a City who's involved there? You have 4 center backs, but then Laporte might leave perhaps. Chelsea, they seem to have a lot of center backs. They seem to have a lot of players, period. Is it dependent on the club situation, or is this a player that clubs want at all costs?
I think he's a player that many clubs want at all costs. And also it's important, I think it could depend also on the Bellingham story, because 2 clubs really interested in the Joško Gvardiol deal are directly involved in the Bellingham story, which is, of course, Liverpool and Manchester City. And I think it's going to be really complicated for any club in the world to sign both Gvardiol and Bellingham in the same summer. It would be a package for more than 250, almost 300 million euros. So almost impossible. And so I think the Bellingham story could have an impact on the Gvardiol transfer in the summer. So let's see where Bellingham will end up. But I can say for sure Manchester City have Joško Gvardiol among their priorities for this summer. They love Joško Gvardiol. He was already in Pep Guardiola list last summer when Nathan Ake was close to rejoin Chelsea. Then the deal collapsed and they decided to keep Ake, extend his contract. And so the Gvardiol story ended up for Manchester City. But he remains a player in the list of Pep Guardiola. He's a big fan of the player. And in general, in the market, all the top clubs are looking for left-footed centre-backs. It's a position where there are really few on the market. Pierre Nkapie is another one playing for Bayer Leverkusen, always in Bundesliga, and could be an interesting one to follow. But for Gvardiol, Man City will be there. Liverpool, I think they will refresh the defense. They need at least one signing in that position. And from what I understand, in January, they asked for the conditions of the deal for Joško Gvardiol, but it was almost impossible to negotiate. So no way, but they know that the player was a Liverpool fan as a kid. And so he's one of the players they are monitoring. But again, their priority is Jude Bellingham and then Chelsea, because Joško Gvardiol was 90% a Chelsea player last summer. The deal was almost done. The Leipzig were perfect in the strategy to keep the player, extend the contract, and keep the player at least for one more season. Now Chelsea remain interested, but as you mentioned, they have so many players, and so at the moment I think their priorities will be finding a new center striker. This is the top priority for Chelsea in the summer, and a central midfielder to help the ones they have right now. So not the full priority to go for a centre back, but Chelsea are always interested, and Chelsea are unpredictable on the market. The strategy is not very clear, as we know, so things can change always at Chelsea. And so I would say Chelsea, Man City for sure, and Liverpool interested in Gvardiol. One more thing, my expectation is for Joško Gvardiol to become the most expensive centre-back in the history of the game. So more than 80 million euros for sure. This is the idea for Leipzig, and I think it's going to be way more than 80 million euros this summer for Joško Gvardiol.
And if I may say, before we planned it so without Markus, we have mentally planned it so, because Markus is sitting there with his Eintracht Frankfurt shirt behind him. So we have to end with my Eintracht Frankfurt, because they got some interesting players as well. But a guy that has been somehow on my radar, but still he has been a bit in the shadow of a lot of other players, is the Wolfsburg player Van der Ven. He's a Dutch guy. He came a couple of years ago, I think, from Volendam. He came for 3-4 million euro from Dutch football. He is a left foot player. And I was just reminded now, when I was in Germany, that there is a lot of interest in and around him. So maybe you can present him a bit and what's going on there for the Wolfsburg player, Fabrizio.
Yes, very interesting player. As you mentioned, as we said before, many clubs are looking for left-footed centre-backs. There are really few on the market, and so he's one of them. The point is, he's just extended the contract of Van de Ven with Wolfsburg a few days ago. New deal signed with the agent, who is the nephew of Mino Raiola. So he remains with the team Raiola, and he decided to sign a new contract. And what I can tell you, that from what I understand, some clubs, including Bayern, were surprised with the decision of the player to sign a new contract because they were hoping to find a solution and to maybe make a proposal in the summer. Bayern are among clubs following this player, and I'm told also one Italian club was tracking this boy. But now with this new contract at Wolfsburg, it's going to be complicated to sign him this summer, maybe next one. We will see, but he's really appreciated. He's a player who is very talented, I'm told very professional, so this is why many clubs are really attracted by him. Again, left-footed centre-backs will always be in request, because I'm sure that in the summer, many clubs will go for that. We mentioned Chelsea, Manchester City, because probably Laporte will leave the club, probably Barcelona. So many clubs will be in the market for that kind of player, but I expect Van der Ven to stay at least for one more season after signing a new deal, with some clubs be disappointed with this new contract signed a few days ago.
And as Dad alluded to, there isn't an episode that we discuss where we don't discuss our beloved Eintracht Frankfurt, but with good reason, because you have a likes of a Kolo Muani who has 11 goals, 10 assists to his name, has been an absolute revelation in the Bundesliga. And then you have Oliver Glasner as well, a very well-respected coach who there are some murmurs about, who might leave, might extend, what have you. Dad, I'll get your final thoughts on it after Fabrizio might have some news or not in terms of their movements.
Yes. So if I can say, starting on Glasner, as you mentioned, very respected coach, very good coach. At the moment, the situation is still quiet around him. We had some rumors about Chelsea, but at the moment, it looks that Graham Potter is back in full confidence also with the board. So at the moment, the situation is quiet. But for Oliver Glasner, I'm sure there will always be interest, because this kind of coach doing very well in the Bundesliga with clear ideas is always appreciated in international top clubs. And so this is why we will always have rumors. But from what I understand, at the moment, the situation is still quiet. So let's see what's going to happen in the summer. But at the moment, I'm not aware of any big movement around him. Again, let's see what's going to happen at Chelsea in the next weeks, because they want Graham Potter to continue like this, not just for 3-4 games, but long-term is the mission for Todd Boehly. And on Kolo Muani, what I can say is something positive from what I understand for Eintracht fans, is that they will only sell the player this summer if something crazy will arrive on the table. I don't see them selling for normal fee or for good fee. It has to be something crazy. Otherwise, they're prepared to fight to keep the player at least for one more season, and maybe sell after the Euros in summer 24, when Kolo Muani will have the chance probably to be a starter together with Kylian Mbappé in the French national team. So a big opportunity also for the player. Benzema is no longer there, so it's a big opportunity for the player. This is the mission for Eintracht. Also, we had some rumors on Man United prepared to bid for 120 million, but from what I understand at the moment, Man United are not making bids, also because they are in a club sale process, and Man United will not proceed with any proposal now. So it will take time. It will be a long strategy to be made probably in May, June, not now. So at the moment, there is nothing concrete, but for sure, fantastic player. And so to keep an eye on in the summer, but crazy bid is needed to see Kolo Muani leaving Eintracht in summer 23.
Well, I'm doing a column for a quite big paper called Bild Zeitung, and I did mine today. And the guy I'm doing that with, we're talking about lots about Glasner, and of course, it's a difficult situation when your coach is not 100% signed up for the next project, and so it's a quite difficult situation for Eintracht Frankfurt, because if you want to attract players, they will ask you who is your coach, and I think that as an Eintracht fan, not being a journalist now, I hope that we can see something going on. They are negotiating. There are numbers. There are a contract, as I understand, on the table. So let's see what's happening now after or the break, no, the international break. What is, of course, for Eintracht now, because their season is standing by a cliff now, because it's all about what they're doing now. They are out of Napoli. That can happen. Napoli can beat a lot of teams in this Champions League, and they will. So it's a very exciting times for Frankfurt. But I'm with Fab. The thing is, when you have strikers at Eintracht Frankfurt, you never have time to enjoy, because is Jovic or is Aller or is whoever who's doing Silva, they just kind of disappear. But I think I'm with Fab there, that I think that they need crazy money to let him go. But still, it's a bit like at that level Frankfurt are now. They have to sell players to get new players in. So let's see what the big clubs will do. And I think that Fabrizio always say, and I think that that I agree with that. There is like a dynamo. Is going one go to this club, then they need a replacement. So one has to start. As for Glasner, I think that Boehly's project, if Potter fails, you somehow got a feeling that maybe he will go another way, a different kind of manager, maybe a bit stronger or more. I'm not saying famous. I'm just saying prolific more than when they do. So well, let's see. Well, Markus, our friend and our honorable guest has to go on. But if I may say, Markus, before you do the end of the program, Fabrizio, how much are you sleeping at the moment? Can you get some sleep?
Yes, at the moment, yes. Then next month will be complicated. Will start to be complicated ahead of the summer. Now it's pretty good, but I'm traveling a lot for Champions League. You know how much I love it. It's always important to be in contact with friends, with sources, to meet new people is always very important, and also to follow the game, because sometimes you can have all the sources you want, but then to have your instinct, to understand with your own instinct what the clubs need, what's going on the pitch is always important. So the traditional journalism is also very important. And yes, I try to sleep as much as I can. And then I'm sure that April, May, and the whole summer will be super busy.
I noticed that you didn't answer my question. So, and then I go to next question. the number of... So how many phone calls do you do during the day, and how often do you have to charge your telephone? Or how many telephones do you have?
I have just one phone, but I charge my phone. It's like 4 times per day, and it's March. So imagine in August could be like 6 or 7, probably. Yes.
And how many WhatsApp groups, how many phone calls during a day?
WhatsApp, it could be like 80, 85 now. In summer is more than 150 per day. And then there is Instagram messages, Twitter messages. It's not just WhatsApp. It's crazy.
When you started your career, I remember you had so and so many followers, and then you were kind of taking over a whole market. If you say that when you started your career, you had 5% agent calling you and 95% you calling agents a club. What's the numbers now? Because we've got a feeling that you are so a big market. So sometimes it's good to have Fabrizio talking about them.
No, this is true. This is true. Honestly, this is true, because now, there is the big numbers always attract people, is normal. So I can say that probably the percentage is 40 on their side and 60 on my side. But let me say that for me, it's always crucial to call people, to text people, to be in contact, to be active. If you start to be passive, you're done. It's always important to be active, to be creative, because you enjoy. When you're active, you're enjoying things. When you're passive, you're no longer enjoying things. And I think you can't be in this crazy transfer market jungle and industry without enjoying what you're doing every single day. Otherwise, you will go crazy. I love this word because it's full of crazy people, of funny people, and of friendly people like you. So I will keep going like this, but I will always be active.
Thank you. Markus?
As a shameless plug, as an ending remark, I did do an episode with Fabrizio about his mindset and how he built himself up. So if people are interested, they can also...
Yes.
True.
But anyway, Fabrizio, thank you so much. We know you need to go, but thank you so much for the update, and great seeing you again and catching up.
Thank you. Thank you. Really, congrats for everything you're doing on this podcast. I follow you. I'm sure we will be in touch again very soon with all these Bundesliga stars. And thanks again for the invitation. It was a huge pleasure to be together as always. And I wait for you in Italy very soon. I hope very soon.
Yeah. We have to see each other again soon. Grazie mille, and auf Wiedersehen.
Ciao. Thank you.
Ciao.